Hi, I'm astrologer Penny Dix and welcome to yet another ASTROBITE. And today's is for the 7th of February. Well, today we're going to look at Venus sextiling Pluto. So let's have a look, or let me have a look at the chart and unpack this a bit and see how it's going to be affecting all of us, because Venus, as you know, is the planet of love and relationship, but she also has the qualities of being associated with finance, with money, with our kind of luxury goods, because she rules Taurus. And Taurus is an earthy fixed sign. Now, Venus has just moved into Aries. Venus isn't too happy here. Venus finds this a little bit too hot for her. However, Aries is cardinal. And even though Venus rules Taurus, which is fixed and earth, she also rules Libra, which is air and cardinal. So there is something that she can kind of funnel or channel her energies through. So she can find some energy to become much more assertive in the sign of Aries. So what do we make of her making a sextile, which is a helpful aspect, to Pluto? Because Pluto, as all of us astrologers have been going on about for many, many months and quite a few years, has just moved into the sign of Aquarius. And Pluto, of course, is our god of the underworld. Pluto is kind of that energy that wants to take us down into the depths of our soul and really make us look at our core, look at who we truly are. Venus in Aries is looking out about in the world. She's not really so interested in what's going on in here. She's more interested in what's going on out there. So the sextile to Pluto is almost kind of just taking the edge off Pluto's need to go within and to be able to transform and transition situations to empower others. So maybe actually what happens with this energy today is feminine energy finds a way to feel much more empowered by Pluto sextiling Venus. So, you know, it doesn't actually matter whether you are a male, a female, a transgender, or any of the genders in between. We all have feminine energy and we all have masculine energy. And Pluto here is saying to Venus, I can help you bring a little bit more of that deep well of feminine knowledge to the surface. And remember, Pluto is in Aquarius, which is very much about those higher frequencies and energies of being able to connect with energies that are kind of just raise our consciousness up. So you may find today that you have better vision, a better ability to see how the new can unfold, how we can make and create the future that we desire for ourselves and the collective. Remember, with Venus in Aries, she's just begun her journey round the zodiac wheel again. So it has tremendous impact and tremendous power. So this feminine energy is moving through this fiery sign, ruled by Mars, whom is in a sense her partner, because he is the divine masculine. And Mars, of course, is struggling a bit, still retrograde in Cancer. Now, interestingly, Mars today is trining Saturn in Pisces. So we need to also take into consideration this energy for today, because Mars doing the doggy paddle in Cancer, thinking, when am I going to get out of this emotion? When am I going to shift these feelings? Aries, interestingly, where Venus is, Venus sextiling Pluto, is kind of saying, hang on in there. I'm going to throw you a bit of a life raft. I'm going to make it easier for you to keep your head above water and not drown in these feelings and these worries and this kind of depth of despair. Saturn in Pisces trining Mars is saying it takes time. It takes the time it takes, and that we all have to be a little bit patient, because things are changing this month of February. And when we get into March, wow, that's going to be a bit of a game changer. But also we need to look today where the moon is. Because of course, Jupiter has just gone direct in Gemini, which is fabulous, fabulous news and fabulous energy. We have this wonderful opportunity, this luck, this optimism, this positivity in Gemini, the sign of communication, the sign that helps us to come up with creative and innovative ideas. And the moon has just gone past being conjunct Jupiter. And the moon in Gemini is the people in general feeling much more connected, and connected to an ability to communicate more freely. And so there's a sense today, because it's trining the Sun and Mercury. So there's a sense of, and they're in Aquarius, freedom of speech. There really will be, people are going to be standing up today and saying what they really feel. There's a rebellious energy in the atmosphere today. And I think that because the trine is helpful from the moon to Mercury and the Sun, it's like saying it will actually work out okay. Be mindful of what you say, because Saturn is doing that, saying stick within the kind of boundaries and rules that society require us to kind of operate within. So it's not about breaking down doors and breaking into government buildings, for example. It's actually about being a little bit more circumspect, a little bit cleverer than that, because Gemini, remember, is an air sign with Jupiter here, and Uranus is kind of hovering on the edge of soon going to be dipping his toes into this wonderful sign of Gemini. The energy is building for change. Now, within all of this, we have to remember, because our kind of main protagonist today is Venus sextiling Pluto, the feminine. Venus, our value, our self-worth. We mustn't allow ourselves to become inflated with maybe the little victories that we have. So whether that's on a personal level where we go, yes, I got it, I got them to understand what I was saying, or whether it's on the world stage where you think, yes, at last, a politician listening and making some changes. Don't allow it to inflate your ego. Keep yourself grounded, which is difficult because we don't have much earth in this chart. We have Uranus in Taurus, but Uranus is kind of coming up, the sun is going to come up and square Uranus. And so we're going to get a little bit of kind of tension with that energy, and some quite, I would think, dramatic scenes and potential problems with, there could be, again, significant weather events or even earthquakes, that kind of thing. Let's move on to our word for the day, because the reason I suggested we don't allow ourselves to get inflated, to let our egos get inflated. And I had this, is because of the word of the day, which I'm going to tell you in a minute. I had this wonderful, my first kind of what I'd call real teacher and mentor of astrology was this wonderful woman who felt things intuitively very deeply. She resonated in such a way with astrology that I suppose she was the person whom in many ways I learned to allow my intuition to go with the feeling of the energy of the map laid out in front of me, rather than just literally what the planets and the aspects mean. So she taught me to be brave and take risks. But within all of that, she reminded me, and she often reminded me of this, to keep grounded. She said, don't allow yourself to get inflated, because she said, you will be right. You will find you'll be right about a lot of things. And she said, sometimes that feeds the inflation, because the energies of astrology, she used to use this word, the numinosity of the kind of brilliance of what the stars and the planets represent is so powerful when you're kind of literally living with the frequency and working with it, that she said it's so important to stay grounded. So I've always really valued that from her. And, you know, if she ever watches this video, thank you. You know who you are. And I'm so glad you were my first teacher. Anyway, moving on to our word for the day, which interestingly is humility. Because Venus is kind of this higher octave of love and being adored. You know, she was the goddess of love, Aphrodite. She was revered by the gods. She was the most beautiful goddess in the goddess pantheon. And humility is something that I think only comes through knowing the self incredibly well, and through constant self-awareness and checking where one's ego is, and or if one is becoming inflated. So here are some of the quotes that I found about humility. Saint Augustine said, "It was pride that changed angels into devils. It is humility that makes men as angels." And that is what one has to achieve. And, you know, I think we observe it so much in, you know, modern politics, world politics. The people with the inflated narcissistic personas and the huge inflated egos are the ones we just want to, you know, well, we just find that their energy is very uncomfortable. And so, and it's sad in a way, but I can understand why people don't go into politics, that the people that know themselves well enough to have humility rarely go into politics. Confucius said, humility is the solid foundation of all virtues. And James M. Barrie said, life is a long lesson in humility. Thomas Merton said, pride makes us artificial, and humility makes us real. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, a great man is always willing to be little. And that's true. If a great man can be humble, when we find humility, then it's so refreshing. C.S. Lewis said, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. You know, that is so true because, and I think I've said this before, and I might have said it in the live I did on Saturday night for the month ahead of February. And if you haven't checked that out, go and check out my February overview because it was an interesting one. There was some interesting things that came up in the chat. But, you know, we often listen, as I've often said, to respond rather than listen to listen, so that we're thinking of what we want to reply, so that we sound clever or interesting. We're not very good, us human beings, at sensing the energies of another and the appropriateness of whether to bring up a certain topic. Now, one of the things that I think Pluto going through Aquarius, and when Uranus moves into Gemini, one of the things that both these planets are going to really help us with is to become much more aware of the energy of others, of the collective and of each other. And that is part of this process of the human mind consciousness, the consciousness raising its frequency, growing, that our consciousness, our conscious energy is growing to an extent where we will be able to sense and read other people so much more easily, so that we don't launch in with our inappropriate me, I want. We will sit back and listen. And maybe what I'm saying today is there's something about Venus sextiling Pluto that is saying, Venus is saying, okay, let me hear what you've got to say. How can you change me? What can you do or say that could empower me? Tell me. And Miyamoto Musashi said, think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. And William Penn said, sense shines with a double luster when it is set in humility. An able and yet humble man is a jewel worth a kingdom. Charles Spurgeon said, humility is to make a right estimate of oneself. And Alfred Mercier said, the grace which makes every other grace amiable. So these quotes really do, I think, emphasize the importance of humility as being fundamentally so relevant and necessary for society to grow and move in the direction that the cosmos and the cosmic bodies are willing us to. They're kind of inviting us to. They're pulling us forwards towards this new way of being, this new way of thinking. So on that note, thank you so much for joining me for another AstroBite. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's have a day where we think about being humble and humility. Hey? Sounds like a good plan to me. And I will see you very soon with, I have no doubt, another AstroBite. Bye for now.